Before you throw away your bin of scrap paper, let me show you how you can turn it into beautiful laminated bookmarks in just a few easy steps. So let's jump in. So I quickly wanted to go over some of the supplies that we're going to need. And what I've done is I've just pulled out a bunch of random odds and end pieces that I have in my scrap bin. I'm also going to be laminating my bookmarks, and so I'm just using some thermal laminating pouches and my laminating machine. You don't need to laminate these when they're done, but it's a nice added touch. The first thing that I want to do with my cardstock is I want to sort of match up sheets that have designs that kind of are similar. And most of my paper is white on the back, and I don't want the bookmarks to be white on the back. I want them to be double-sided. So I'm going to sort of match up pieces that I have that are roughly the same size so that I can have one side that's nice and another side that matches it. And also, if you want to, you can use just regular colored cardstock on the back of a piece to give it a little bit more color instead of leaving it white. Once I have paper that I like the matching side with, I'm going to quickly cut these out into 1.5 inch strips, and I'm going to cut them to be 6 inches long. That's about the standard size of a bookmark. You can make them a little bit longer or wider if you'd like, but I find that that's a good size for a bookmark. This is a perfect craft if you're new to crafting. Let me know in the comments below if you're making this along with me. Now that all of my paper is cut, I'm going to glue them together, and you'll notice that some of them are a little bit different in sizes. And so once I've done gluing them, I'm going to trim the surplus so that they're the same size on both sides. Now some of these I've made a little bit smaller than 6 inches just because I had that much paper for them, and they don't need to all be the same size, but I'm going to quickly glue them all together so that we have a bunch of nice little double-sided bookmarks. Now, the ones that I have there are a few that the paper is already double-sided, so I don't need to glue those ones together, but all the other ones I'm going to do a quick job gluing these together so that they are nice and ready to go. And you don't need to use very much glue because we're going to put these through the laminator later, and so it's just to hold it together so that when we're moving them around and preparing them for laminating, they stay together and don't fall apart. And now that all of these are glued together, I'm quickly just going to trim them up so that they don't have any surplus edges on them, because some of these weren't totally straight when I started with them. And remember, they don't need to be perfect dimensions because these are for fun. Comment below if you're making this for yourself or if you're making it as a gift. Now that my bookmarks are all cleaned up, I have a few options of things that I can do. If I would like, I can leave them just the way that they are. I can round the corners, or I can add like little tapered edges onto them to make them look different. So I'm going to do a few different samples on these so that you can see what they look like when they're done. They don't need to be perfect. Remember, this is just crafting. Now, if you have like a corner trimmer, you can put them into there to give it a nice rounded edge instead of having to cut it out by hand. Or you can just do it by hand, which is also fine. And finally, we have the choice of adding in a hole punch into them now, or we can do that later. If you are going to do it now, it will seal the hole when you're laminating it. And then you have to punch that hole again, or you can do it later and just punch both the laminated paper and the bookmark at the same time. So I'm going to pull out my hole puncher. I'm just going to add a few holes into some of these so that you can see what I'm talking about. And you want to try to get it into the center if you can. I don't have a fancy hole puncher, so I have to eyeball it, but you can get the idea here. So now the idea behind having a hole in these is so that later you can add in a tassel if you'd like. And if you don't plan on adding tassels, then you don't need to have holes in them at all. So now that these have holes, they are ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place these bookmarks into my laminating sheets, and you can do, I don't know, as many or as little as you'd like. I like to maximize my space, so I'm going to put a bunch into this laminated sheet, and I want to leave a little bit of an edge around them so that I've got space to sort of have as many as possible, but enough space to cut around them. So I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch at the bottom, maybe 1/2 inch depending on how I end up placing these, and maybe about 1/2 inch between the two so that there's space to cut in between each one. Now if I can line this up properly on my workstation, I should be able to make this work out moderately well. And then hopefully I'll be able to put some onto this top section as well so that I don't waste too much laminating sheets. I'm always a fan of saving as much product as we can. Now if you want to make bigger gaps, that's fine. That will give you more space to cut, but you don't really need to have huge edges around these bookmarks when they are finished. And now that these are all on my laminating sheet, I'm going to quickly throw them through my laminator. And when this is going through your laminator, you want to make sure that it's not curling at the back end by accident, because then your bookmarks will actually be curled as well, and we don't want that. Now once this has been laminated, if you have these little air pockets like I have right here, it's a little hard to see, you don't need to worry, but if it's not sealed very well here at the edges, you can throw it through the machine one more time. And so for this one and this one here, I have not the greatest seal, so I'm going to put this through my laminating once more so that it gives me a better seal around those edges. And now this sheet is done. I'm going to quickly do the next sheet and we will have 2 sets of bookmarks. So now that I have 2 sheets of bookmarks, what I have to do is I need to cut these out. Now I can cut these out with my paper cutter, but you want to make sure that you're leaving a bit of an edge around these so that you're not cutting too close, because if you cut too close, you're going to open the seal that you have from your laminating process. And so I'm going to quickly just cut this rough cut with my paper cutter around the edges. But I will be doing a precision cut around these so that the corners around the round pieces will look nice. Now that these have all been cut, these edges are very sharp, so you want to make sure that you're rounding them. If you do have a corner punch, you can do that to round up the edges, or just use your scissors and do a nice little rounding edge. It's really fairly simple, just using your scissors, and it just takes a few moments. So prepare yourself to do a little bit of cutting and round up all these edges, because you don't want to be poking people using your bookmarks. If you're enjoying this project so far, be sure to subscribe to my channel so that we can keep crafting together. Now that our bookmarks are all laminated and they're cut, we have a few options. You can leave the bookmark just like this, and then you have a bookmark. You don't need to add a tassel or a ribbon to it, and it's ready to go. You can use the ones that had the pre-made holes in them and redo the hole so that you have a hole for your tassel or ribbon to go into it, or you can also add holes into the ones that don't have holes in them. So the ones that have holes in them, I'm going to re-punch so that they have a new hole in them. If you have a special hole punch, you can, with smaller size, you can actually punch the center of this hole here where it's showing. You can see it's totally sealed in there, and that way you'll have a smaller hole and the seal will hold. If you don't, you just need to re-punch this hole again. And so for a lot of them, I never bothered to punch them because I'm just going to do a punch with my hole punch when I'm ready to make these all. So I'm going to quickly do a bunch of holes in these, but not in all of them, because I personally am not a fan of having tassels in my bookmarks because I find that they get in the way. Now I didn't realize this when I made my original holes, but the holes are a little bit off with the distance of the laminate on it, so the holes aren't totally perfect, but that's okay. So I'm going to leave a few with no holes in them, and I'm going to add some holes to a few of these as well, and we will get these almost finished up. So these bookmarks here without the holes are ready to be used, but these other ones we have to put in some sort of a tassel or something into them. Now, if you want to buy tassels, I've left a link for those in the description below, but you can also make tassels, and I've left a link to a video here where I go through how to make tassels. And so you can make your own tassels or you can buy your own. And I'm simply going to pull the tassel, let's find a yellowish one here. This one here is going to get yellow, and we're just going to pull the tassel through the hole and then loop it through the hole again, like so, and our tassel is done. And so this is an option for one of the tassels that you can do for your bookmarks. So just adding as a simple tassel like so. Now, I'm not a fan of tassels, but if you don't want to make tassels or don't want to buy tassels, that's cool. We can also do something else that I like to do, and I like to use ribbon. And so just grabbing a piece of ribbon, nothing too long, maybe about 6 inches. We don't need to like have a super good measurement. And we're going to loop this through our bookmark as well. Nothing crazy. Just folding it in half, putting it through the hole on the one side, and then looping these two ends through the other side, through the hole on the other side here, like so. And then you have this sort of a bookmark. Now the one thing that I'm going to recommend, and I do this with any type project where I have ribbon, is I'm going to quickly just burn the ends of the ribbon. Just a little quick burn, because if you don't do that, your ribbon will start to fray over time, and nobody wants that to happen. And then you can have a bookmark with a ribbon tassel instead. And so that's my preferred method for these bookmarks, just because they don't, I find that these tassels take up too much space and cause a little bit too much heartache for me. And you want to try to have the ribbons match the color of your bookmark if you'd like, or you can go totally crazy and pick any different color of whatever ribbon you might have. And so now I've got all these bookmarks that I can use. We go through lots of bookmarks at the house, so this comes in very handy for me. That way we've got them and they can be used. We like to lose them and give them away. And so there we go. Now we have a handful of bookmarks that can be saved and used for another day. I hope this little project gave you a few minutes to create something just for you. If you made these bookmarks, let me know in the comments below what colors and scraps did you use. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you like to do quick and easy projects like this, be sure to subscribe so that we can keep crafting together. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting!